Peace, chiefs, and deers. It's Bronzebird here with another video. Before I begin, like and subscribe. So today's video is gonna kind of just be about a personal reflection on what is it that I see in the city that I'm from, a long-going dispute between New York City residents and what you would define as degenerates that seems as if to be in another quarrel between citizens, the police, about what they do in a particular neighborhood or what they've been doing around town. Now, if you understand it like how I understand it, usually in the inner cities, they have these things called the dirt bikes, of course, the ATVs, off-road bikers, off-road bikes that they usually ride during the summer months and the hotter months out there. And a lot of people believe that it's a nuisance. I believe it's starting to become a nuisance too. And especially growing up, I didn't really have a problem with it. I didn't really care for it. I just was like, okay, it's pretty cool that they could do all these tricks, but I guess because I'm becoming older, I can see why it's more of an annoyance to have those things riding around the neighborhood every day, all day. Now, it's come to a head where the police department back in 2016, which is a video I'm going to be showing a little bit later, where they're going to be talking in depth about how they're actually creating a program, or they did create a program to get these bikes off the streets because they're usually illegal and they don't have a license for it or any insurance on the bikes that they have in the neighborhood. They're purchased illegally, as I said before. And the reason for making this video is this a part of the culture we accept or a part of the culture we do not accept? Now, a lot of people make the argument that they shouldn't be taken off the streets because they remember having dirt bikes in the neighborhood ever since the 60s and the 70s, or maybe not the 60s, but mainly more so the 70s and 80s. And usually those were designed for kids, and kids would ride on those dirt bikes or little mini motorized bikes around the neighborhood with no problem. But now you see men who's usually in their 20s to 30s, usually youthful men, who go around and they ride on these dirt bikes from sun up to sundown. Now, there is no set time that they come outside to ride these dirt bikes. It can happen at any time of the day. They could start at 7 in the morning. They could start at 11 in the morning. They could start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There is no clean cut time they start with these dirt bikes and they ride it outside. And then, to my honest opinion, it does become a nuisance. I don't want to hear dirt bikes all day. Sometimes I just want to have a day where it's quiet and I don't have to hear things. But also taking that responsibility of living in the neighborhood or living in the hood in general, factor in the fact of the matter, there is no laws. There is no regulations on what you can and what you cannot do. It seems as if like there is no say so in the community because most people don't care. So the clip that I'm going to play for you today is going to be a video about how these people that's on the dirt bikes, these motorized men, decided to go into a neighborhood in Queens, Astoria, Queens, and cause a ruckus with the dirt bikes. And Astoria, Queens, as we know it, is more so one of those middle-class, upper echelon type of neighborhoods in New York City. Actually, a very beautiful neighborhood. Mainly the landmarks is the Hell Gates Bridge and the Triborough Bridge that overlooks Randall's Island. And so they wouldn't expect that these people would be coming around with their dirt bikes, but now it seems as if that they expand from going into hoods such as Harlem, places in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and more so probably Jamaica, Queens, where there's a concentrated populations of so-called Black people and so-called Latinos, where it's starting to get out of hand again. And Mayor de Blasio is basically just having his foot in his mouth. He says that it's a disturbance, but he's knew this ever since he's became mayor. And he's been more lax on too many issues, which is the reason a lot of people hope that he gets out of office. And Andrew Cuomo, who has all those allegations going on, and even before the allegations, it seems as if he was more lax on issues about things that needs to be done in the city, only because they wanted to give him credit about his response during COVID. So I'm gonna play this video and I'll just give my commentary along the way, so peep.
Streets, people sick and tired of seeing ATVs and dirt bikes. They're not only illegal here, but they're dangerous.
And it has led to some heated confrontations between riders and pedestrians. And now even the mayor is weighing in. CBS 2's Corey James joins us live from Astoria with more on this story. Corey?
And Dick and Christine, they say they come here to exercise, they come here to relax, but they feel they can't safely do that because people are going up and down this road on illegal ATVs and dirt bikes at all hours of the day.
They come a lot late at night.
Several times a week. We feel afraid.
At Astoria Park, dirt bikes and ATVs are a constant problem for some park goers.
They go up and down the grass, and it's just dangerous for everyone.
Christina Guarino is fed up with the illegal activity taking over pedestrian paths and the grass. She recorded this video of her confronting the riders last October, hoping they would stop.
They started screaming back at us, threatening to fight us, threatening to hit us. A few concerned pedestrians nearby had called the police because they were getting really aggressive.
And that's the logic of a lot of these dudes that go on a dirt bikes or people who's just rebels in general, that's from the city, inner city, whatever. And it's like you start to question yourself, like, if I don't want to deal with this, is it a permanent thing that I have to leave my neighborhood in order to have a better condition on what is it that I want from where I live? And the thing about it is, again, to stress this again, Astoria is not the hood. Just for people who don't understand, who's not from New York, Astoria is not the hood. It's more suburbish, hoodish, but suburbish type of neighborhood, but they're not hood at all. Okay, so these are questions you have to get in, because later they're going to mention in this video about how they feel as if they have to leave the neighborhood because they don't want to hear dirt bikes. They don't want to do it. And of course, you see on your screen, it's more a population of non-so-called black people. So non-so-called black people are going to be more sensitive to things that's happening in their neighborhood. Maybe if they have a neighborhood watch, who knows?
And the aggression has played out in front of Max Silverstein.
I saw an elderly woman get run over by an ATV, actually, and the guy just sped off, and then a whole crowd of people waited until an ambulance came. It's terrifying because it can happen to anyone.
Mayor de Blasio was questioned about the danger Friday.
I'm really concerned about this, and I have gotten regular reports of this problem. So I will talk with our police leadership about addressing this problem.
But the NYPD is...
That's probably another way of Mayor de Blasio saying he'll talk but won't do anything, because knowing how Mayor de Blasio is, he's slow on so many different things. And that's why a lot of people in New York City is getting so aggravated with the mayor.
Limited on what they can do to stop those driving off-road machines on roadways and sidewalks. The department policy for chases, quote, requires that a vehicle pursuit be terminated whenever the risk to uniformed members of the service and the public outweigh the danger to the community. While some of the bikes are confiscated and taken to the junkyard, not all of them become crushed metal, leaving many more out and in the hands of people pestering communities.
I hope that, something is done about it, because I've heard stories of people moving out of the neighborhood because the issue has gotten so bad. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't think about doing the same thing.
And in recent weeks, the NYPD says it has taken dozens of ATVs and dirt bikes off the streets. They've also arrested people for illegally riding them as well. Police say if you happen to see anyone on an ATV, on a dirt bike, illegally, you should contact them immediately. We're not real life here in Astoria. Corey James, CBS 2 News.
All right.
Well, to be honest with you, that last suggestion doesn't really mean anything, because even if they are to call the police, it'd be too late, and more than likely those dudes that's on the dirt bikes is going to go to another area. So the probability of them stopping an ATV or stopping someone on a dirt bike seems a little bit more slim than none, unless you can get a whole entire group of police officers and police cars to chase down an ATV. But this is the problem where it lies. More so what you're starting to notice in these situations is the NYPD doesn't want to be liable for lawsuits. They don't want to be liable for charges against them because of their pursuit or the fact of the matter that they handle certain situations. I started to notice that too. A friend told me about that. But the fact of the matter is the NYPD in particular, because they've been hit with so many slew of charges of police corruption, of more so to the likes of handling situations aggressively, and of course, situations where so-called black men in particular have been targeted and killed by police officers, NYPD has to go through a whole entire reintroduction training of trying to become better police officers so that they don't get into trouble with something else and get all these lawsuits put in their name. And the thing about it is, with the ATV and the dirt bikes, that's also not become something that's sensitive to the city itself. And honestly speaking, personally speaking, this is not something new. Now, it's a little bit rare for me to see news like this, that when it comes to ATV and dirt bikes, that they would dare go to a neighborhood like Astoria, Queens, because it's rare for them to ever go to neighborhoods like that. Usually they stay confined to the hood. All the neighborhoods where so-called Black people and so-called Latinos are concentrated. But to go to a place like Astoria, Queens, therefore go to places like Woodside maybe, or certain neighborhoods in Queens that aren't deeply a so-called Black population or so-called Latino population, it's a little bit, out of the odds for me. Very rare that I ever hear news like that. And I mean, of course, you'll see in Manhattan, it doesn't really even matter where they go, right? Because they wouldn't go to the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, but it is a factor of that they bring a lot of these ATVs and dirt bikes, or even those three-wheel motorcycles or dune buggies. I don't even know what they're called in real life, but those vehicles, you can find them by 42nd Street, Times Square, having a little celebration, playing all that whack-ass trap music and that mumble rap inside the cars and stuff like that. And, they make a big scene, but you're not going to really find it in certain neighborhoods in Manhattan. But I just want to stress the idea. It is very rare for me to hear news that these people on the dirt bikes dare to go to a neighborhood like Astoria, and they've been doing it repeatedly for the last couple of months, or it's been an increase or spike during the COVID. So there's going to be another video I'm going to play that's going to give into what is it that my thought process on this whole entire thing is. It's like I'm stuck between two different factors, because at one hand, are police officers going to be naturally aggressive when it comes to this whole entire thing? Yes, because they have to find a way on trying to get these dudes off the streets. And because these dudes are so rebellious, it starts to become a whole entire cat and mouse chase between them and police officers. So I'll play the next video.
To these urban cowboys, the streets of New York City are the open range.
It's a skill.
You call that a sport?
Of course. What we doing now has never been done.
Social media, their open forum, where they showcase their dirt bikes and ATV stunts to the world. Like Benetton, also known as Ben Moore, and Cal ASAP Ty have thousands of followers on Instagram.
People are telling me I'm their superhero. The average person can't get on his bike and do what we do. It took us years to train.
For months, the I-Team gathered biker videos of riders careening through narrow lanes on city streets, on highways, over bridges, driving on sidewalks, into oncoming traffic, here narrowly missing an MTA bus. Some are seen openly taunting cops in a dangerous cat and mouse game. Terrified pedestrians and drivers are often forced to duck for cover.
Come out of nowhere, and
And this is how dangerous the bikes is in the neighborhood, because there has been cases where these dudes on the dirt bikes do go on sidewalks in order to evade police officers, but at the same time, they go ahead in the streets and try to wiggle their way around traffic and cause a big ruckus to people that's in their cars or other vehicles. So yes, you do see that. That is a very much a common, frequent occurrence. But let's continue.
people could get hurt.
Who's going to expect a dirt bike to jump in front of you while you're driving in the city? You're going to swerve to the right or to the left, and you can hit somebody.
Why are we only seeing the bad things to this bike life stuff? What about the people that like it? What about the people that I talk to across the world, all the new friends and all the people that I met, all the different ethnicities that this bike life brought?
The NYPD.
And this is where the complication comes in, because I don't know if that's ASAP Ty talking right now, but just the fact of the matter that it did look cool when I first started discovering it as a kid in the neighborhood that I did grow up in, where they was able to do all these miraculous tricks and all these different things on that bike and be able to move so proficiently back and forth on the bike and stand up and have a wheelie and stand up while they're doing a wheelie. It was cool. But then after a while, seeing 20 to 30-year-old men sitting up there doing the tricks every day and doing the same thing over and over and over again, not covering any new areas specifically, it starts to become one of those nuisance things that I start to say, it's really annoying and it should go away. But who am I to say? Now it comes to questions of if, as if, should I move out the neighborhood if I don't like this type of thing, or should I fight against it? And if I fight against it, what is the odds that other people are going to agree with the things that I'm talking about and how much I think it's annoying to the neighborhood? It's like I'll be the small voice of these said dirt bikes and these people that ride on dirt bikes, these dirt bikes connoisseurs. And just the fact of the matter, what really puts this on as much as a problem is that it's illegal. It's illegal. There's no way that you know what I'm saying, this is an illegal vehicle. Yet and still, it's a tradition that happens every year during the spring and the summertime. Loosely into the fall, but they slow down in the fall because it starts to become colder. But you have to deal with that. You have to deal with the sirens. You also have to deal with people who have loud mufflers in their cars or loud engines that these people have, because New York City is also known for street racing, drag racing. It's been something that's been prevalent in the city before.
PD has sounded off with a showcase stunt of its own a few months ago, crushing a pile of confiscated bikes and ATVs, claiming riders are on the run.
We want to send out a very strong message to the nitwits and knuckleheads who...
Now, I don't believe that dude is police commissioner anymore, but like, you know, New York City residents had a problem with him. That was the second time. I think his first time was like in the 80s and 90s. But just peep the words, because of course they'll attribute that to him being racist, or the fact of the matter he said something very racially insensitive, or he was making a mockery or saying something disrespectful because he was name calling. And that's where he got a lot of trouble and backlash from. This is actually an old video, but just to stretch the point, you know?
Insist on operating these illegal vehicles.
They have millions of followers.
Filmmaker Edward Harris has spent the last 4.5 years with riders in New York, Baltimore, Florida, and Atlanta. His documentary, One Dream to Ride, will be out next year.
It's bigger than life right now.
This isn't one or two guys. You're talking about thousands of riders.
How do you answer the danger?
I answer the danger by saying, personally, the city needs to find somewhere where these guys can ride. Because I really believe if they have this space to ride, then they too, as a community, will begin to apply pressure and get people off the streets.
Ben Moore says he's been pushing for a park for years.
If you did get a park, would you stop riding on the street?
There would be no reason to ride on the street.
I'm not going to buy that argument.
The new police commissioner doesn't think renegade riders would play by any rules, so a crackdown continues. Seizures are up 52% over last year. A total of 1,817 illegal bikes confiscated as of this week. Their attitude, catch me if you can.
Till you get a park, you'll ride on the street?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Doing what you do?
Oh, yeah, doing what I do.
That's the end of the video, but let me say my argument on a whole entire buy a park so that they can go there and ride on the dirt bike so they wouldn't have a reason to go on the streets. Number one, the new police commissioner at that time did make a legitimate argument, because it doesn't matter if they was to get a confined park to themselves, they still would be riding on the streets regardless. And it still would be a problem to people in the neighborhood or citizens of New York City and the police officers themselves. Now, this is ironic. They always want to use, let us find you a space so y'all can do what y'all can do without any problems and people bothering you and stuff like that. As if they're going to get a whole entire dirt park, just like they have a skateboard park or a bike park and all these different things, but they're going to have some for dirt bikes. I don't believe that argument at all, because it reminds me of Ed Koch in the 80s when graffiti was taking control over the MTA subway trains, and they was graffitiing on all trains and all over the place. They came up with a whole entire thing to say, hey, we'll just grant you some space where, number one, you can spray, make your artwork and make your graffiti on one train car. One train consists of 10 cars, 5 and 5, and we'll leave it alone and let it go around the city. That's what they proposed to these dudes that was being rambunctious and rebellious as being the nuisance of that time in New York, okay? Now they're proposing this idea of having a park and all this other stuff. They said the same thing. They said, oh, we'll let you have a park where y'all can graffiti all over the place and blah, 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 blah. Did it fall to fruition? Hell no, it didn't. MTA and NYPD just got more aggressive on stopping graffiti crime and got more, more defined on trying to find ways of deterring dudes to go ahead and graffiti on trains. Now, I understand that's different because that was actually vandalizing city property. Now, this is more of a nuisance to New York City. And like I said before, this isn't something that's new. They've been doing dirt bikes for a long time. But at the same time, to propose this idea of creating a park in order to get rid of this problem makes it seem like, to me, it's just one of those arguments that doesn't seem like it's going to happen, or proposal that just seems lackluster. And especially when you're dealing with a mayor like Mayor de Blasio, who's so lax and so slow when it comes to certain situations. The probability of taking these dirt bikes off the streets, who knows? But this is why I'm starting to feel undecided on this whole entire argument about dirt bikes. Now, I understand that people do dirt bikes, or more specifically, this is geared towards so-called Black men I usually see doing the dirt bikes in the inner city, because it's just not New York City. It's also in New Jersey, places, Pennsylvania, as in Philly, DC, Florida, maybe California, I'm not sure. But to get back to what I'm talking about, this idea, the reason why I'm so undecided is because, yeah, it's a cool thing to see people doing tricks and stuff like that on these vehicles. But if it's illegal, it's illegal. So now where do we set the precedent on what is allowed and what is not allowed? Now let's just go into our idea about culture. Should we allow things to fly in with this quote unquote culture we claim to have? That it's okay to allow degeneracy and illegal activity to happen because it's in the name of culture? Or do we sit up there and say, this is not what we allow? Now, we can have fun, but we can have fun in a different way, where it's legal, where we don't have to put up a whole entire reason to be a nuisance and, once again, a statistic or a rebellious type of faction against the government or people of the city. Now, imagine what people in the neighborhood of Astoria, Queens think about when they see a bunch of so-called Black men and so-called Latinos on these dirt bikes and off-road duty vehicles. Now, their perception may be, oh, this is what so-called Black men do. All they do is ride on dirt bikes all day and sit up there and cause a ruckus and do all these different things in the neighborhood where we don't want them to. Now, my whole page is about helping out with the progression of so-called Black men. That it would be so easy for me to sit here and call these men degenerates and men that have no training to be respectful of other people's wishes. But at the same time, the argument comes in, can I really be mad at this situation? Because this is what it's like living in the inner city. Will there ever be peace in the inner city as opposed to people being able to live the way that they want to without all these sudden noises and all these sudden problems that they encounter, such as this? This is a question I ask. And if I was to dare take action on it myself, would I be at risk of being hurt? Would I be at risk of being disrespected? What would happen to me if I took it upon myself to say, I hate the dirt bikes just as much as you do? Something to think about. Peace.